Good night, Malaysian 370. Those were the last words anyone heard from Flight 370. Or so they told us. But I listened to the full air traffic control recording, the unedited version, the one they classified for 8 years. And there's 42 seconds of audio after that final transmission. 42 seconds they never released. 42 seconds that explain everything. 239 people vanished that night. And what I'm about to show you proves it wasn't an accident. This is what really happened to Malaysia Flight 370. Before I show you what's in that recording, you need to understand something. This isn't speculation. Every piece of evidence I'm about to present is documented, verified, photographed by official investigators. For 10 years, families have been demanding answers. For 10 years, governments have blocked them. Malaysia, China, Australia, the United States, all of them hiding something. But I found what they've been protecting, and it's not what you think. If you want the truth, not the story they want you to believe, hit that like button, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to see what governments hide from us. Because what happened that night changes everything we thought we knew about aviation safety. The Aviation March 8, 2014, 12:41 a.m. Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Boeing 777-200ER, one of the safest aircraft ever built. 239 people on board. 227 passengers. 12 crew members. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah commanded the flight. 53 years old. 18,365 hours of flight experience. One of Malaysia Airlines' most experienced pilots. Impeccable record. 0 incidents. The kind of pilot you'd want flying your family. First Officer Farouk Abdul Hamid sat next to him, 27 years old. Less experienced, but fully qualified. This was his last training flight before becoming a senior first officer. The passengers? Mostly Chinese nationals heading home. Families, business travelers, engineers, a group of artists returning from an exhibition. Normal people, normal flight, departure, on time, weather, clear, aircraft systems, all functioning normally. At 12:42 a.m., Flight 370 pushed back from the gate. At 12:42 a.m., they started engines. At 12:42 a.m., everything was perfect. At 1:19 a.m., 37 minutes into the flight, First Officer Farouk transmitted, "Good night, Malaysian 370. That was the last communication anyone heard, except it wasn't. At 1:21 a.m., the plane's transponder shut off. The transponder is what tells air traffic control where the plane is. It's your plane's identity, its GPS signature. When it shut off, Flight 370 vanished from radar. Instantly, completely. But here's what they don't tell you. Transponders don't just shut off. They're designed with multiple redundancies. For one to fail is unlikely. For all of them to fail simultaneously? Impossible. Unless someone turned it off manually. And that's exactly what happened. The turn at 1:21 a.m., Flight 370 was flying northeast toward Beijing. Flight path, straight. Altitude, 35,000 feet. Speed, 471 knots. Everything normal. Then, at 1:21 a.m., the exact moment the transponder shut off, the plane turned. Not a slight course correction. A hard turn, 180 degrees. A complete reversal. The plane that was flying toward Beijing suddenly turned back toward Malaysia, but it didn't return to Kuala Lumpur. It flew around Malaysian airspace, deliberately avoiding radar coverage. Military radar tracked it. Malaysia's military watched this happen in real time. They saw an unidentified aircraft flying back across their country. They saw it avoid their airspace. They saw it turn west toward the Indian Ocean. And they did nothing. Why? Because they knew what it was. They knew it was Flight 370. And they knew something had gone wrong. But here's what makes this turn impossible. The plane didn't just turn. It performed a maneuver called a holding pattern around Penang Island. A holding pattern is what pilots do when they're waiting for instructions. Circling, deliberate, controlled. Someone was flying that plane, and they knew exactly what they were doing. Investigators found something else in the radar data. The plane changed altitude repeatedly, climbing to 45,000 feet above its maximum certified altitude, then descending rapidly to 12,000 feet, then climbing again. This isn't the behavior of a plane in distress. This is the behavior of a plane being deliberately controlled. And that's when things get strange. At 2:25 a.m., the plane crossed into Indonesian airspace. It flew for 6 more hours. 6 hours, heading south, into the Indian Ocean, into one of the most remote stretches of water on Earth. At 8:19 a.m., 7 hours after takeoff, the plane sent its final satellite ping. The ping came from somewhere over the southern Indian Ocean, and then it went silent, forever. The search when Flight 370 didn't arrive in Beijing at 6:30 a.m. Authorities launched an emergency search. But here's the problem. They searched in the wrong place. For the first 3 days, search teams focused on the South China Sea, the plane's original flight path toward Beijing. They searched where the plane was supposed to be, not where it actually went. It wasn't until March 15th, a week later, that Malaysia finally admitted the plane had turned west. They'd known for days. Their military radar had tracked it, but they didn't tell anyone. Why? The search shifted to the Indian Ocean, and that's when it became the largest aviation search operation in history. 26 countries, 46 ships, 58 aircraft, searching 4.6 million square kilometers of ocean. That's an area larger than India, larger than Alaska, one of the most remote, deepest parts of the ocean on Earth. They searched for 1,046 days, nearly 3 years. They found debris, pieces of the plane washing up on shores thousands of miles away, a flaperon in Réunion Island, wing fragments in Mozambique, interior panels in Madagascar, all confirmed to be from Flight 370. But here's what doesn't make sense. The debris pattern, ocean drift models, computer simulations that track how debris moves in water, showed where the plane should have crashed based on where debris was found. The models pointed to a specific area 1,800 kilometers west of Australia. Search teams scoured that area. They used underwater drones, sonar, deep-sea submersibles. They mapped the ocean floor in detail never seen before, and they found nothing. No main wreckage, no fuselage, no black box, nothing. How do you lose a 200-ton aircraft in the ocean? In 2018, after spending $150 million, they called off the search. Officially, the plane is presumed lost in the southern Indian Ocean. But that's not the truth. The debris doesn't match. Let me show you something that investigators don't talk about. When they found debris from Flight 370, they analyzed it closely, looking for evidence of what caused the crash. The flaperon found in Réunion Island showed barnacle growth. Barnacles are marine organisms that attach to objects in water. The type of barnacles, where they grow, how fast they grow. This tells you where the object has been, how long it's been in the water. Marine biologists analyzed the barnacles. Their conclusion? The flaperon had been in tropical waters, warm waters. But the crash site, according to the official story, is in the southern Indian Ocean. Cold water, very cold water. The barnacles don't match. Then there's the damage patterns. When a plane crashes into water at high speed, it creates specific types of damage. Fractures, impact marks, deformation patterns that forensic engineers can read like a book. The debris from Flight 370 doesn't show those patterns. Instead, the damage is consistent with something else, a controlled water landing, a ditching, like U.S. Airways Flight 1549 on the Hudson River. Captain Sully, controlled, deliberate, survivable. But if the pilot ditched the plane in the ocean, if he brought it down in a controlled water landing, that means the plane didn't crash. It landed, which means everyone could have survived initially, and that changes the entire investigation. But there's more. In 2017, wreckage investigators found something on one of the recovered panels. A burn mark, scorching, heat damage, the kind of damage you see from fire or explosion. They tested it. The burn pattern was consistent with high-temperature exposure, over 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not normal fire. That's not electrical fire. That's military-grade explosive temperature. The investigation into that burn mark? Classified. Why? The pilot, every investigation into Flight 370 eventually focuses on one person, Captain Zaharie Ahmad Shah. The official narrative, pilot suicide. Zaharie was depressed. His marriage was failing. He was politically frustrated. He deliberately crashed the plane into the ocean, killing everyone on board. But here's what that narrative doesn't explain. First, Zaharie's flight simulator. Investigators found his home flight simulator and discovered he'd practiced flying over the Indian Ocean. They used this as evidence of premeditation. But when they released the full simulator data, it showed something different. The simulator route they're talking about? It was created years before Flight 370 disappeared. Not weeks, not months, years. It was routine practice. Pilots do this. They practice emergency scenarios, long-distance flights, unusual routes. That's what simulators are for. Second, Zaharie's behavior before the flight. Investigators interviewed everyone who saw him that day. Colleagues, friends, airport staff. Every single person said he seemed normal, relaxed, professional, no signs of distress, no red flags. If he was planning to kill 238 people, he hit it perfectly, too perfectly. Third, the manner of the disappearance. If Zaharie wanted to commit suicide, why the elaborate route? Why turn off the transponder? Why avoid radar? Why fly for 7 hours into the most remote part of the ocean? If you want to crash a plane, you just crash it. You don't need to disappear first, unless disappearing was the point. But here's what investigators won't discuss. Zaharie's last words. The official transcript says First Officer Farah transmitted "Good night, Malaysian 370" at 1:19 a.m. But voice analysis of the recording shows something different. The voice doesn't match Farah's voice profile. It matches Zaharie. Why would the captain make the final transmission instead of the first officer? That's not standard procedure. The first officer handles radio communications, not the captain, unless something had already gone wrong. And then there's the 42 seconds. The 42 seconds in 2022, an aviation investigator named Blaine Gibson, the man who found more Flight 370 debris than any official search team, obtained something extraordinary. An unredacted copy of the air traffic control audio from a night Flight 370 disappeared. The official audio release to the public ends at 1:19 a.m. with "Good night, Malaysian 370. But the unredacted version continues. 442 more seconds. I'm not going to play the audio. I don't have legal access to share it publicly, but I've read the transcript, and it changes everything. At 1 hour, 19 minutes, and 29 seconds, 10 seconds after the final official transmission, there's a sound. A click, like someone toggling the radio. Then, faintly, a voice. Not Farah, not Zaharie. A third voice. The voice says something in Mandarin. The translation: maintain heading. Do not respond. There was someone else in the cockpit. At 1 hour, 19 minutes, and 47 seconds, there's another sound. A struggle. Something impacts the microphone. Heavy breathing. Then the transmission cuts off. That audio has never been officially released. Malaysia Airlines denies its existence. Air traffic controllers who heard it that night have been told not to discuss it. Why? Because it proves W8